Cory Wilson is, well, actually, he's probably a staple, I would say, of the Houston scene. And we have a pleasure of having him in the Houston Ensemble. He's one of the founding members. So we got him today. We're going to get into some shenanigans, drink some of this beer, and see how weird it gets.
Talk about our sponsorship.
Oh, yeah. So thank you, Eighth Wonder Brewery, for some more delicious brew. This time we're having some Cougar Paw Red Ale. It's got that ferocious flavor to it.
Yeah.
So, Cory, we know you forgot your notebook of amazing topics to discuss. So
Yeah. Yep.
what are
Well,
we gonna do?
I'm an idiot. Yeah, I left it at home, so I guess we'll just talk about what you want to talk about.
Let me do one more piece of background so that you don't even have to say it.
Yeah.
Cory Wilson is a saxophone player for his entire life, basically.
Yeah.
Plays all of them. Plays with us. Plays with everybody else.
Yeah.
He's going to talk about his history, the places he's been, the people he's played with, and then how that translates into life today.
Yeah, and this guy ain't no slouch.
Mm-mm.
He's toured all over the world. You can catch him. You can catch him like on the Letterman show online and look that up. So, yeah, let's do it. Let's talk about it.
Okay, well, I remember the earliest memories I have of music is playing this little keyboard that my mom got me, and it was this little organ thing, and I didn't know what I was doing, and so it was kind of just like a waste. Like, I didn't really know what I was doing, and I always liked music, but I can remember in, I think it was 6th grade, that I just picked an elective, and picked band, and I just randomly picked the saxophone because my aunt she said, well, I just think that's the coolest instrument in the world, my Aunt Kim. So I was like, okay, fuck it, I'll
Thank you, Kim.
play this. Thank you, Aunt Kim. And I'll play the saxophone. And then I first started out with a band director who he's just like, he wasn't very good. He didn't seem like he could connect with the kids, like I was just kind of not interested as much as I would like to be. So my mom told me, just why don't you stick it out and like play one more year, go to the next school. So when I was in middle school, I got Joe Freilich, and if any horn players out there, especially older guys, they'll know that name very well. Joe Freilich is just a master woodwind guy. So he plays oboe, flute, clarinet, all the saxes, and he plays a little bit of brass and stuff too. But he was a really great educator, and he got me involved with, my instrument, really, watching somebody like that play. And then I remember he turned me on to a couple of albums, that were Blood, Sweat, and Tears, which was really cool, something I hadn't heard of, like a real horn section. And then he gave me this Sonny Rollins CD, and like I had never heard of any of these people, and I just like it was like just the moment where I understood what this music is, and it's like it's the first music I connected with on that level, and I just wanted to know how are they so free, and like when I heard Charlie Parker and he gave me these CDs, and I never returned them. I'm sorry, Joe, but yeah, that was the moment where I was like, I gotta find out how they do this. How is this possible? How are they so free in the music? And it just sounds like freedom. It sounds like it really feels and sounds like freedom. And so anyway, I played in high school, and then I attended HSPVA, the Performing Arts High School, and that's where I really started playing, in real bands, in the combos and in the big bands and stuff. And then North Texas.
You went to University of North Texas?
Yeah, North Texas. And that was a great experience, and met a lot of great people. And then when I came back to Houston, it was I played in various bands, with a friend of mine, John Durbin, a trumpet player, who's currently in the Suffers, and so some members of the Suffers and some of their original members I was one of the original members, and then it became a 10-piece over like the course of like 6 months or a year, and then we started. Right, we were just a cover band, just trying to, gig and play cool covers of like reggae and ska and like stuff like that and rocksteady. And so, then we started writing originals, and people at the shows were liking the originals a lot, and so it just kind of rolled into years later and a lot of hard work and trying to push ourselves out there, and then. When we did some tours, and when we got called for the Letterman show, that was like our big thing, and it was like that was a really cool experience, and we got to tour with Lake Street Dive, and which is a really cool band. If you've never heard of them, I would suggest to check them out because they're just a quartet, and all of them are so talented. It's crazy. They're all they can all play just any kind of any music perfectly. Like they're perfect. They're a perfect band. But anyway, and then Jimmy Kimmel and The Daily Show with Trevor Noah, and all those were just experiences from playing the saxophone. So
you did those as well?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
shit.
they were great. Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and so many different experiences too. In the tours, just going to just all over the place, and all the different venues and festivals. So many festivals. Like we probably played every festival that you could name.
What do you think was the so it's like you going from being a cover band to writing originals? What were like the key I don't know, what were the key events that led to the bigger events?
Well, I'll say that the way that we went from being just a local band in Houston, and then starting to do tours and getting a name for ourselves out there and getting some followers, is that we didn't overplay our own city. We would try to take the shows that were we would try to just wait a month or month and a half and really practice really for a show and make this show, build it up, and then go play other places. And when you come back, everyone is like, don't over.
That actually takes discipline.
Right.
Even
yeah.
thinking about now,
if they can see it, and it's different if you're playing different kinds of music. But this was like an actual well, I don't know what to call it. It's like act. Yeah, it's like it's like a real act that you don't want to see it twice a week because. Right. And you could, but that's kind of at the point where we realize that if we do it like this, then people they're like, I don't want to miss that next show, Right. And so you sell tickets and they sell out, and so anyway, that was where, and then like the Letterman show, we had to because we had to get like press agents and like publicists and like manager, because a lot of these festivals they will not talk to you if you're a band. You can't call the Letterman show like
right.
You have to have people. So once we had all those people in place, but we did a lot of that work. We did a lot of that work to get there. But yeah, and the band worked. Like they worked very hard
for the Houston Ensemble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
And we're getting there. We're talking about new music already. We're preparing that.
Here, let's do a quick plug for an important show that we're doing. October 14th, 7 to 10:30 p.m. The Houston Ensemble will be performing a live show at Axelrad Beer Garden. This is the first live concert that they're doing for their reopening. So that's going to be a really great time. Mm-hmm. The band's going to be here. We're going to have, 2 more folks with us. And it's going to be an event. So we'll put the details in the description.
And Axelrad is, personally, one of my favorite spots in town.
It's one of the best.
The vibe is just great. There's like dozens of hammocks in a huge yard. and
spacious
very
yard.
spacious.
It kind of reminds me of when you look at like birds' nests.
Yeah.
That they're the hanging kind, you know? It's like they're little
Yeah.
pods, and you can like,
Yeah.
climb in a pod and just zone out.
I mean, once you get in those hammocks and you got that beer on you,
And
like
the-
a
and the-
slice of pizza,
Yeah.
You're done.
dude, you're in there.
You're done for the night.
You're like, hell yeah, this is like a good reason to come out.
Yeah. Plus the dogs.
And
Yeah, you can bring your
dogs.
dogs. You can bring your dogs. You can bring the
pugs.
kids. You know, it's
Yeah.
like it's a cool.
Yeah.
It's a really cool place to for anybody to go. The lighting is really cool. They have the projector behind you.
Huge
Oh, man.
projector.
It's just a cool spot.
Great
It's
sound.
great.
Great
yeah.
sound. They have a great sound.
Full
crew.
bar,
The
too. It's not just
Shouts out to Wonky Powers.
Yeah. Seriously.
Because their sound crew, like centered in Houston, they do all sorts of shows. They do all of, but those guys are really pro, and I don't remember a time I've sounded bad.
Right.
You know.
Thank you
So,
to Mario and Luis
Yeah.
from Wonky Power for having us. They'll hopefully see this.
Yeah.
But that was just a little digression
Yeah. We have to give the shouts.
about the Houston Ensemble.
Yeah.
So, what's it like, Cory, doing all that? I guess this is a good thing. This is a good topic for people who think like they have a odd image of what music is actually. Like you're not like you're on all the big late night shows as a band, but you're not, you know, and this isn't like negative, but like you're not Bill Gates rich.
Yeah.
We're not Usher
Right.
rich. It's interesting because I think a lot of people will be like, oh, when you get to that point,
Mm.
you're going to be rich and famous.
That was really common for people to, you know, at least when I was in the band, and I don't know exactly what money they make currently, you know.
Sure.
Because they have like 8 members now, I think, and you know, so two less members or whatever, you know, is going to be, or maybe there's 7.
And let me just clarify real quick, just to be super clear. It's not a slight on anybody,
No.
as I keep saying. It's just the reality of playing this kind of music.
Well, yeah.
That's what I'm getting
Fame
at.
doesn't always equal riches.
Right.
Yeah.
And riches doesn't
Not-
always equal fame.
Well, we would come back from a tour sometimes, and the number one thing would just be like, they just like they look at you like, you know, like you must be, you know, everything, all your stuff taken care of now.
Mhm.
You're on easy. This
You're
is
on
it.
easy
You know, you're on
street.
easy. You made it, and you're like, no, I'm like, I have to pay my rent. Like I'm trying to like
Yeah.
we're all trying to like help each other figure out how we're gonna like pay our bills and shit. And so it's.
Because touring is
know,
expensive.
It doesn't work that way, you know. It just doesn't. And I was gonna talk about something, you know, all the music streaming apps and stuff like Spotify, and it's. I've just been in a love-hate relationship with the thing, and I'm sure you guys. I mean, I'd like you guys to talk about it too,
I got
because
a bit for it.
but there was the one thing besides the money. I'd like you guys to talk about like the money, the tier system, and the money like that you make or don't make. But the one thing before I forget was that one thing that annoys me so much about Spotify and so many of these other apps is that when you open up a song and you know you're listening to it, there's no details in there.
Mhm.
They don't. It's to me it's more than annoying. It's like disrespectful. They don't have like the drummer listed. They don't have the bass
Oh,
player
sure.
listed.
Yeah.
They don't have the studio where it was recorded. They don't have the year. It was you know, and
You
all
gotta-
the
you
old
gotta
albums
search
and
for
all the
that
old
extra
CDs
hard.
and even CDs. Right, and I'm saying the least they could do, you would think, for is to represent all the people on the
That's
It doesn't ever
the content should be there for you
It
to look
doesn't
at.
ever feel like Spotify actually respects the artist.
No.
What it
Yeah.
feels like is that they thought, or whoever, you know, I'm not gonna name names or whatever, but it just they thought, well, we're making a platform for you, so just
We should be grateful.
Right.
Of course, right.
And I was watching a podcast between one of the lead members of Tool. Right, Tool used to be
The main guy.
like the biggest rock band. Like for a few
Yeah.
years, it was
Right.
like the biggest rock band ever. In like the mid '90s, late '90s. And he, without mentioning any names, I was shocked that he actually talked about this, because I feel like this is something you could get like in some serious crap over. But he said that basically people think that Spotify is its own unit in the music industry, and they think that the record label is kind of like Spotify has kind of like is immune to the forces of the record label, or like
It's
they're
like Spotify
separate.
is a record
It's
label
like
almost.
The truth is, yeah, he said that Spotify has long ago sold out to the record labels because the record labels all like immediately realized like, yo, if their streaming service like works out for the artists really well, the artists won't really need us as much.
Right.
So they
they have to either be the same thing or fight each other, and one should win.
Exactly.
Right?
So what the logical business move is they said, listen, minimize your payout to the artists, and in exchange, you'll have a portion of our revenue.
I see. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah. And also, I mean, just what complicates this is the fact that so many more people today have the ability to make music, unlike back in the day. Just the technology itself, where everybody can be putting out music all the time, streaming, and it's like you kind of lose the need for a record label per se. Or honestly, at the end of the day, you don't need Spotify. It just makes it convenient to have everything in one place.
It's hard to say right now. Like, let's say somebody like, well, let's just say Post Malone or Billie Eilish. So they have a total of like 50 plus billion streams. Billion.
Yeah.
You know what's hilarious about that? They're still not making a lot of money off those streams. They're making like a few $1 million off of billions of streams. But the main thing they're getting is the ability to book any gig ever. They can book any gig.
That's a great point.
They're not. No one's gonna say no to somebody who has over 50 billion streams. Dude.
Yeah.
So now, does that legitimize Spotify? Does it mean that Spotify is necessary? I don't know.
I'd say no. Because if the content is right, people will find it regardless.
So I believe it's something it's already there, and it was one of the first of its kind, and so it's like it's too big to fight. It's like something that, and what my point was, like, the least that they could do is update and put some fucking information on there.
That's crazy.
Because it's so disrespectful, and it almost like, I just was thinking about it. I mean, I've been thinking about it for years, but like just today it just got to me. Like it was like they're just slapping people, the musicians, in the like face. It's like it's like you're already making all this money off of us, basically giving us nothing, and then you won't even do that. Like you do not even care at all.
No, and my good example of that
musicians,
is,
I mean, we could just like say no, we don't want to. We just start a new one. Or
I wouldn't be surprised if like the CEO of Spotify doesn't even use Spotify.
He doesn't even listen to music.
He doesn't listen to music. Probably
he doesn't like music.
I put an album on Spot. I put it everywhere, honestly, like iTunes, Spotify. But I just got a check the other day. I saw like a little direct deposit, and I looked at it. And I was like, oh, $34. That's for like, I don't know the exact number, but that's definitely for 5-digit number of streams. I think close to like 50,000. Now, it's not a ton, but the amount of money that you put into recording it, promoting it, even art, your instrument.
If you equate
$34,
if you equate that to old, back in the day when you just bought an album, like. You can just tally up the exact amount of how much those albums cost because they couldn't hear it without it. Yeah. And so how much more money would you have had?
And also, Queen would sell out, like, just for example, Queen, right? Or any band, like Van Halen. There's no Spotify back then. They'd sell out any show. They'd sell out any show.
Yeah.
So what Spotify has done is made itself relevant. They made themselves necessary in a way by negotiation, by doing deals behind the scene. And, I mean, this is the world we live in where everything is just numbers on social media. I'm being told by my friend, like I have a good friend who's touring with Trace Adkins. Shouts out to Brent McCullough. And he told me that his bandmates who have been touring with Trace for like over a decade, were losing their endorsements because they don't have a lot of followers.
Oh, wow.
So you're touring with one of the biggest country acts, and you're losing your endorsements because you only have 2,000 followers.
Yeah.
And it's just getting so silly.
That sounds like
now.
a social credit score.
It is a social credit score. This is our social credit score.
Yeah. I knew it would come to this.
We all knew it was coming to this. Remember that one video that went viral of this dude, this nerdy dude with glasses? He's just on this talk show. I forget his name, but he's like, yeah, social media is actually destroying our social skills. It's destroying our social skills.
Yeah.
It's replacing our happiness.
Yeah.
It's taking up too much of our time. And he was saying that over 10 years ago, and we were like, yeah, social media, it'll be fine.
10 years ago.
And now it's just common knowledge. Everyone's like, I hate Facebook, but I gotta use it.
We're trapped. Especially like as anybody who's trying to promote anything.
Yeah, that's the most interesting point about social media and being an artist. The connection between those is that we have to have it. We have to use it. We have to always be, people have to be aware of what we're doing and where we're gonna be, content, and just
because they're not gonna look many other places.
That's
why every day we're posting.
So we have to.
We're there. It's like, God dang, it's annoying to keep checking in.
It's annoying. Let me put some positivity on it for a second.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather be doing this though than anything else.
Well, I enjoy myself.
Yeah, no, it's true. There are absolutely benefits to it. It's just like the long-term dystopian outcome that we are foreseeing. That's like right now, this is the amount of technology that I'm happy with. That sounds kind of nuts, but I'm like, maybe we should stop.
Yeah, when can we stop?
When can we stop? You know what though? Jeremy Joseph, which is another local musician,
great musician,
singer, and pianist. He made a good point, and I always think of like the counter arguments to everything I believe, so that I just check myself. And he kind of reaffirmed this idea, which is that right now it might be that not so much that technology is inherently bad for us. It's just that we're in an awkward point where it doesn't seem like technology is benefiting us that much. But if it gets a little more advanced to the point, like let's say you can walk into a general facility and it could give you like your body stats, like your health stats.
Okay.
Because it'd be so cheap that there's a dark side to that too. If you're running through machines that can tell you your health stats and everyone's healthy now, the other side of the coin is that, well, now all your biometric data is all over, accessible to any company. There's always the other side.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Danger.
Yeah, healthcare might get super cheap. Even poverty might not be so bad anymore. It's already getting there, where like homeless people can still, like, I can't say this with 1,000% certainty because I'm not homeless, but it's probably better to be homeless now than it was 200 years ago.
Yeah, most certainly.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like things do generally improve with technology, but there's always
a catch.
And I would also just the other side of that, the technology of just like the physical. Technology is just like the mental stress, and I think just like the physical, like the psychological changes that are going on like throughout the world because of these things that are made easy, these automation of everything, and the instant, knowing what everybody's doing all the time and all that. And I think it's just like it's odd, it's odd to me. It's very odd to me because I'm not that old, and I've born in the 80s, and like since then I've seen basically an explosion in technology, where before cell phones it's only been this fraction of a second that there's been just cell phones and and social media and the internet and stuff,
and it's only getting faster.
And I just can't imagine where it's gonna go, but I feel like we all need to be able to step back from it, like at times, more often during the days, and
Do you want to make a point? Because I need to get this out of my chest.
No, get out.
Since we're on camera, I want to make this prediction right now. Like, I've envisioned it. I've dreamt of it. Social media 2.0. We're jacked. We're jacked in.
Oh yeah.
We're jacked in.
Oh yeah.
And it's gonna get to the point, like, look, right now you can literally get a 9-to-5 virtual reality forum moderator job. You can get a 9-to-5 virtual reality moderator job. You know what that means? You put on your headset.
Oh God.
You go in a virtual chat room, and you just make sure everyone is having a good time.
Whoa.
And you get paid for that. So guess what? You wake up, you don't do a goddamn thing, you just jack in, and you're there. Now, once this gets to the point where it's almost preferable to be there than here.
And it will be.
And it will get there.
No doubt.
Yeah, I'm afraid that it's just gonna get insane.
There was a movie that I thought, besides Black Mirror, I think Black Mirror does like an amazing job of illustrating some of the future outcomes. But there's a movie called Surrogates that came out a long time ago, and a long time ago Bruce Willis, I believe. Yeah, I think it was 10 years ago, something like that, where everybody in their home had a chair where you get strapped in, and then it's sensory, it's visual, it's all sensory, and you go into virtual reality and you can be whoever you want to be. And they made it so visceral, like people getting fat and people just in the chair atrophying, just dying, and then they don't want to come out, and then they get so messed up as to what's real and like what their reality is. And
well, I think if you step back and from being the person like using that technology, and then you look at the side of the people making that technology, and it's kind of, to me, it's like they always make something because they can, it's like it's not necessarily weighed whether it's good or moral or whatever.
And they want to, and they can, and they want to.
But see, I always look at it like this: it's like is there a reason? Can somebody think of a reason why one person would want to put a bunch of people in La La Land and not in this world? Yeah, I can think of ways, reasons. So anyway, and I ask myself, just when you go back, to the dawn of civilization and stuff, and you come all the way up to this point, and then I just when I look at people, I'm like, is this really where we're at? Like, is this really where you think that it should be? And then this overwhelming majority is just saying, yeah.
What do you mean? Yeah.
Like the great.
What are you talking about?
Duplantis. Why are we here?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, why can't we treat each other better than this?
Why can't we treat each other better?
Yeah. Like, why can't we take care of each other? Why can't we make everybody,
If there's some sort of,
is this really just that question? Just that question. If the answer is that you think this is just it's just chance, like this is just how it works, then you're very confused, I think, and you're not asking yourself any question. You're not asking.
Really deliberated on the idea of why is this all we do?
Yeah, is this all?
Or never
had
some sort of earth-shattering experience that makes you think otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, you guys probably have had a couple of earth-shattering experiences. My earth-shattering experience. And for the longest time, I just took this for granted as to be just a reality, just a common reality, until I realized it wasn't really a common reality. And this is relevant. So, like we were talking earlier, there's the second war going on between Azerbaijan and Armenia. My parents were refugees of the first war in the early 90s. And my mother was pregnant with me when she on foot escaped from Georgia all the way to Sochi, Russia, which is about 200 kilometers, I think, vaguely speaking. So a couple of trains were taken, a couple of odd taxis were taken, and a lot of foot travel. So she carried a bag of jewelry that she would use as money to get through places, bartering, because we didn't have money.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was 4 years old, and my parents took me back to one of their homes in Georgia, and there were thousands of bullet holes all over the walls.
Whoa.
Wow.
Like if we had
Just indiscriminate shooting into these houses.
We'd be dead if we'd stayed there.
Oh my God.
And so now, and I think about that, and I think about like what it's made me realize in my life, and it's become, painfully clear that in America, we actually have the privilege of not going through these things. Yeah. We have the colossal privilege of not going through these things.
I think about it, daily. I think about alternate, realities sometimes of what could be right now. Or a lot of times I'll drive. Just earlier today, I'm driving along and I'm just looking over there and there's some buildings and some people. I'm like, what was this, 1,000 years ago? And there were actually people here. Yeah. And then we killed them all, and then now we're here, and and people don't, they don't. I think there's this whole thing with the Black Lives Matter thing where it's like the people want to tell people that it's just over. It's over. It's like that's all done. Slavery's over, and you're just like, what are you talking about? Like it's only yesterday, and
it wasn't.
There's tons of problems going on. So it's like. It's like the Native American people, like they're going through horrible things as we speak. They're going through horrible treatment right now, and now, of course, and then now,
and then, since we're on it,
and it's just insane. Like, why would you think that this is like really our country? This is like a.
But then, because of the state of affairs that we're in right now as a country, your experience is discounted because of who you are.
Yeah, I mean,
literally.
It's a funny thing you say that. Like, most people look at me and they know that I'm not American. Even though I've lost my accent over years, I had a pretty thick accent.
It's the glasses.
For a couple of years, like, I had an accent, but I lost it over time.
It's the beard.
Yeah, it's the beard, the terrorist beard, as a lot of people would say.
The terror beard.
My aesthetic choices are personal fucking matter, and I don't want to get into it. But,
it's my body.
I'll put it to you this way, like, I don't necessarily want to go down this route, but I'll just put it to you this way. I've tried to kill my ego, like every day I pretty much try to kill my ego, just a little bit. By a small percentage. But here's the weird thing. The infrastructure of modern capitalist society is built such that if you're tapped into your ego, you will be rewarded.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where a lot of these biblical arguments come from, which is like, this is the devil's playground.
Oh, it's like take more than what you need,
Yeah, if you take more than what you need, you will be rewarded. Make more than what you need. You'll make even more. So it doesn't benefit in a modern society, capitalistic society, for you to be egoless.
Well, it's like productivity is just like another way of just saying money, and
exactly.
And it has nothing to do with actual growth of things that matter.
So because the system actually awards ego-driven pursuits, when you try to become egoless, that's when you get all this conflict
and depression.
And all of a sudden, everyone's like, well, why aren't you making a big ruckus? Why aren't you doing all these things? To me, if everybody just decided to look at each other like a human being, which I think is totally possible. If I can contemplate it, and it doesn't seem like a far-fetched idea.
And you do it in your day-to-day interactions.
You don't look at anybody and think anything other than, I'm going to go have a talk with that person and see what they're about. That's what you think. That's the only thing you think. That's the only thing you can really do. And then you make your decision based on reasonable actions that those people take, whether they're good or not. The actions that they take. But it's not that. It can't be that in this world. Because how do you market peace? You can't market peace in a capitalism.
Yeah. Well, it's not profitable.
That was my 2 cents on that.
I mean,
Well, going back to what I was saying about, just the question of, is this really just naturally where the world would be at this point in time, And then, you can say, well, I don't think so. And then, well, why not? And then who's responsible? I mean, we're all a little responsible, right? But you also, you know in the back of your mind that there are entities out there that are purposefully, stopping real human,
Hey, let's
progress,
go deep into this
But
rabbit hole.
that's what I'm saying. And then we're going like, well, who would that be? And it's like, well, I would like to know who these people are. But just the admission is what I want from people. Just the admission that there's no fucking way that this is just the best we could have done by this point.
And
there's no way.
I thought a good
And
thing.
then is there someone responsible? And there are people.
There are
responsible
people
out there.
responsible.
And they're doing it on purpose.
And beyond that, I was listening to a podcast yesterday by Float Universe. Check Float Universe out on Instagram. They were recently banned.
On Instagram?
Yeah, that's a really interesting thing as to why.
That's lame.
They were asking him questions. This is very conspiracy based for fun, but at the same time, it's very realistic. And they said, "Who runs the world?" And like we were saying just a minute ago, he was like, Satan. Now, Satan is metaphorical, but we're not talking like Abrahamic Satan.
The concept.
The concept of Satan. And he was like, he thought I'd say world bankers, but no, it's Satan. And that doesn't mean we're not able to like overcome that or get out of it, but to be aware of it is what's really important. And I don't think
that was my point. It's just
a lot of people, we're not aware of it, and everything is getting so muddied up today. Like everything that you hear is muddied, and it's muddied on purpose, and it's muddied to divide us, because if we're divided, we're easier to conquer.
Well, you could think, you could say that maybe, let's say, in the 60s or 70s, was it better back then? Was it were people less confused during that time? Because they were being lied to then. So. They were being lied to then, but it was like there was just a lot less of it. There's a lot less information, out there. There's so much.
That's true, but a lot of older people today are like, it wasn't like this back then. Some people say it was, like, for example, race relations were better. Like, there's a different vibe. I'm not saying they were. I'm not saying they were better or they were worse or anything, but I'm just going off of what other older people have said. And they're like, because today it's weird. Today it's like the people in charge or the people who run the mind control system, they want everything to be like you're stepping on broken glass. Everything is a problem.
When you're stepping on broken glass, you do not have a sturdy footing in your life.
Yeah.
So you can be trapped, you can be lifted off the ground, you can be manipulated.
And then it affects our interactions.
And it affects your interactions. People think that it's conspiratorial to talk about these things, but I want to address the people that say this is a conspiracy. Look, I'm not over here saying that there's like one guy in charge of everything.
No.
Right.
I'm saying that there's billionaires and there's trillionaires, and they need to create more wealth.
Yeah.
What do you do to create more wealth? You start a ruckus of some sort.
Yeah.
You must start a ruckus of some sort. Somebody needs to be displaced. Somebody needs to be screwed over in the deal, and some power needs to be transferred to them.
Right.
And there's a variety of ways to do that.
That's what wealth is power.
Yeah, it's a transfer of wealth.
Taking someone else's power.
It can be done, and it has. What did the biggest conquerors in our history do? Slaughter millions. Genghis Khan was the best of them. He killed his armies killed like the most amount of people. Some countries currently have killed the most amount of people. Is it a coincidence that those are the countries with the most amount of wealth on this planet? Do you think there's maybe a correlation there?
Yeah.
On top of that, we choose to forget about it. Well, we choose to forget
Mass
about
murder.
We
or
choose to forget.
turn a blind eye
Because it's
to
uncomfortable.
the problems that are happening right now, especially, like certain genocides that are happening in the Middle East right now or Far
And
Eastern
Africa.
Europe. Yeah, Africa as well. Like, there's shit going on right now, like craziness, and we're worried about here.
Yeah.
And I mean, we should be to an extent because we are here and we have to take care of this environment. But
Isn't that crazy?
we're going nuts.
Isn't that crazy? Just the idea that can just be a guy sitting in a diner with some toast and some sunny side eggs, and then there's a blue sky, and then it's the same fucking planet and the same people, same human race, just across the ocean, and there's people just being gutted in the streets, like and you're like,
and yeah, that's a Bill Hicks.
and then like that's
bit.
supposed to be okay. Oh yeah, Bill Hicks.
That's where he's like, you're like, you look at the news and there's TV, war, famine, war, death, famine, war, and he's like, you look outside and like it's beautiful out.
Yeah,
and you're just doing your thing. And like, even I watched a video where like, I think it was some sort of news documentary or something like that, where they're in Syria and they're by all these bombed buildings, but down the street people are like at McDonald's like eating burgers, and it's like the juxtaposition of war and death and destruction next to McDonald's.
That's the ultimate image.
What?
That's the ultimate image. That's the ultimate image of what we're talking about.
right.
Which is like right next to McDonald's. By the way, it's not like McDonald's was a native Syrian restaurant.
No.
They had to destroy infrastructure to create a McDonald's there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can kind of like, because especially I'll go back to the tour, the tours we would do, and you driving. I was the driver for most of the time, and so because I come from a family of truck drivers, and I've driven trailers
Good
before.
bloodline.
So anyway, but I remember, I'll say two things, but it's just the amount of times that you pass some signs and you go to a small town, and then it's the same restaurants and the same stores and they have the same stuff and everything's the same, and you can just go, okay, so 30 years ago they were all mom and pop places, right? They were all family owned places. They were all great. Why would they be taken over? Like why would that happen?
Corporate interest.
Right, but it's just the same problem that we're talking about. It's not productivity. That's not productivity at all.
No.
That's actually going, the reverse of productivity. And it's like, so why would that happen? So the money has too much power. The money itself has too much power.
What's happened is that capitalism is an idea. And it's an idealist idea, much like communism was an idealist idea.
Right.
The difference is that in capitalism, it's easier to mask the truth with money. In communism, suffering was at your face. In capitalism, freedom is purchased.
And only like, and especially these days where, if you can reach out to the world with your, technology and for relatively cheaply, and everybody's got it, but you can still be, dirt poor and be suffering.
You can be
but
you could be more depressed than a guy that's like poor overseas. And I know that's a cliche point, and I know people
No, that's another thing though.
Well, you really think that really poor people in overseas are less depressed than us? Yeah, fat chance. And it's like, well,
actually, like, sometimes.
I can tell you guys right now, when my life was simpler, and just like a few years ago when I went back and like visited my old farm, I was like, dude, I would be way happier here.
Yeah.
Let me be honest, dude. I wouldn't have as much shit.
Oh yeah, no, just going out. Everybody has that experience. They just you get out of the city, you just do something where there's not telephone poles and traffic and everything, and it's you start to become a human being again.
And we create these
happy.
problems because like where we're going with this, it's like you go to these other countries, you go to Africa, or you go to I'm not saying the cliche like Africa is this crazy third world country where they're just like less advanced or something like that, but you go to a more isolated part of Africa, for example, where they are preoccupied with survival and community. They don't have the problems we have. They don't have the sort of interpersonal problems that we have, but like the communication.
There's an overload of
and they don't have the personal mental problems that we have. I'm not saying they don't have any, but we've created a lot of things because we live in such an augmented society here.
Is that something that would be true to say, is that just the more information and the more technology and the more requirements of you on a daily basis, it's just like, when is it gonna, I mean, obviously there's gonna be some kind of a breakdown at some point.
Yeah. More
like
money.
When will that be?
More problems.
More money, more problems.
Give us a drink.
More money, more problems. I was also thinking, there's a evolutionary biologist that made this point, and he said it, and it really, like, it struck me because
Evolutionary biologist, you said?
Yeah, and he made this point, which is that, and this is very controversial, but it really shouldn't be. And really, the controversy from this statement really stems from the interests involved, and it'll make sense in a second what I'm saying. So he said that, people always say what we just said, like, poor people actually seem to be generally happier in some cases in overseas, with less material. Why is and Chad just said this, is because they're actually having to socialize with each other. They're socializing, they're solving problems with each other, they're helping each other, they relate to each other.
There's more connection.
There's more connection. And he says that right there is the key to why depression has skyrocketed in the modern world.
Mm-hmm.
Is that we have actually taken from our lives, or suppressed from our lives, our natural inclination to socialize and to problem solve together.
Well, I think that these days I think it's this social. We think that we're socializing with people online, and it's like it's like just such a watered down version of it. And there's just the quantity is times 1,000, and then the quality is like minus 1,000.
It's like the difference between watching a live show on YouTube and going to a live show. There's no comparison.
No comparison.
And they're just simply more worried about surviving. Because we live in a gluttonous, oversaturated society, where we can have all this stuff easy. Yeah. You got to work for it. Yeah. But at the same time, we have plenty, and they don't. And sometimes, not having more is good. Actually, usually it is.
Yeah.
It's hard to find the balance.
Yeah, I'm going to throw my phone away after this podcast, and I'm going to keep my saxophone, throw away my computer.
And eventually, like we said, I think we said it in another podcast there, or maybe we said it, just privately speaking, there's going to be a point where you're going to have to make some decision to be in or out. I really think that we're going to come to a point soon, which I'm scared about, soon, where you're going to have to make this one particular or a couple particular decisions that's going to keep you in society or out of society. And my first example of what that might be is if they were to roll out a COVID-19 mandatory vaccine for everybody. And I'm not saying this as somebody who's quote unquote anti-vaccine, but when you look at everything, you look at the history of vaccines, all this sort of stuff, and we're just using this example. I'm not getting it tomorrow. I'm not getting it in a year either. One, because I don't think we need it because of the illness. And two, why does that have to be the ultimatum to allow you to travel or to allow you to go to work or to allow you to go to school? So I'm worried about that crossroads that we're about to hit.
Well, like we had Dr. Verone here the other day, and he said it.
Right.
He just said it like blank, like straight up. He's like, dude, it takes years to make
any good vaccine. Specifically,
I don't believe. Yeah, and Trump was just telling all the people,
right? And he's
like, it'll be out in November, and it's
he
just made it out completely.
He's gonna say that because.
But anyway, not to talk about Trump, but there's no way that a vaccine could be ready by then. No way.
And man, it's like,
I mean, was it Paul? When we were at Eighth Wonder, remember? The last time, and Paul was there, and he said he got one of the vaccines already. A test for real.
I remember that.
Yeah,
Whoa.
he's currently injected with one of the vaccines, and he was like, "I hope it's not a placebo. You know? I hope it actually works." And I was like, "Me too,
That's
Paul."
why he wasn't wearing his mask.
I really do.
Like a cowboy.
Yeah. Well, shout out to Paul Smolin.
Paul Small.
Smolin.
I forgot. There's a point I was gonna make that I thought was important, and apparently not that important because I forgot. But I was gonna say that humans of the world, please acknowledge, understand, realize that 99% of the conflicts that you may have with your neighbor or that random guy online, you were incepted with the belief that you need to argue over this. You were programmed subliminally, indirectly, through media or some form of fashion to have this ludicrous argument with someone
that you don't know,
who might actually be a loving father, a loving mother, a loving person, a great individual, that you think because of something you read from a media outlet needs to be terrorized, needs to be demonized. And if we really come to this realization, it's such an easy thing to understand. Like we can finally make a change, and the first change is that's required is the way that information flows. I do not think we actually have free information in this country. I think it's blatantly obvious that what we read is being systematically controlled. And it is no longer a conspiracy. It hasn't been a conspiracy for over a decade that the Pentagon controls virtually all forms of public media that goes in and out of televisions. They have colossal data centers, one of which is in Utah, where they're just supercomputers that store all public data.
Yeah.
And
well, the theory that if you own any kind of a phone, computer, anything with a mic on it, and Siri and what is it, Alexa and all the different, what's the new one? There's like a new one.
I don't know.
I don't remember. Same kind of thing, but all of them are just like having a guy standing in your room with a notebook and just writing down every single thing you say.
Yeah.
And all of it gets processed and stored, and then it gets fed to the Pentagon.
And what's annoying is that
or
AI,
the highest bidder or whatever, and then you think that,
Company
and then all else, we think that we can get any, truth out of
Exactly.
that manipulated to whatever its advantage.
There's no truth in that.
And I think like, because we've had this discussion before, and it's I don't think it'll ever change until we can separate. Like, either turn all the mics off, like we can't have that happening, or just leaving our phones out of conversations. Like, put them in a bag and a sound, put them somewhere where they're muffled, and then have your conversations. Like, don't even. Are there mics like everywhere? Like, well, who knows?
Probably so, honestly. And you know what?
But we have them in our hands.
The sad thing is everybody realizes this too, because everybody talks about the weird ads they get about what they just talked about.
Oh yeah.
So everybody knows. Don't turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah, it's not something you clicked on or any
That's
of
why I'm
that.
always-
You just spoke about it, and then it shows up.
I'm seeing a ubiquitous turning of the blind eye,
And let me go further with that.
which is frightening.
Why is it when I criticize the government or when I post something, occasionally, that points out a flaw in their narrative, people get on me about it. They're like, well, especially regarding the virus, they're like, they can't know everything. And I'm like, oh, so now you want to believe everything they say. You want to really believe everything they say. Yet, just the other day, you were talking about how much they lie, all the bills that have been bad. Like, are you serious? Just because it's a sickness doesn't mean you should actually be more scrupulous in this current time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because of how global this thing is.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what's happening right now. It's like we're demonizing each other for something that we personally don't even know inherently is true. Like, I understand, like, conceding to an expert.
Right.
I understand that. Like, if somebody doesn't know a damn thing about, playing guitar, and they're going to tell me about playing guitar, I'm going to be like, yo, no. But this is a different thing. We acknowledged years ago that there's propaganda in this country, systemic propaganda of various sorts, and we know that, and it's like almost common knowledge. And yet we will blast each other online over an article. It's hilarious.
We will do whatever makes us feel good or what goes with what makes us feel good.
Yeah.
And right now, if you go against the grain, specifically regarding the virus, if you say anything, nothing crazy, I'm not talking about that it's fake or don't wear a mask or anything like that. I'm talking about if you point out a government official who lied, they'll defend them. They'll say
that's weird.
That's weird. Well, why would we defend lying?
That's
deliberate lying.
That's a phenomenon called the whatabout. Where you'll call somebody out on something, and it's just another logical fallacy. And I don't know how people can't just like recognize a logical fallacy when they hear one.
Right.
Because there's no way to have a discussion with somebody if they're gonna keep using the same over and over.
They operate on a totally different logic.
But they say the what about, you tell somebody, well, he some policy or something that somebody creates, and then they say, well, this guy, but what about that guy? He did that. Your guy did that, and you go, what does that have to do with
red
this
herring.
guy?
Red herring.
The red herring.
It's insane.
And it's like so the confusion. I'll go back to the confusion. It's kind of like we're in a state right now that we have the ability to talk to everybody, but the inability to trust any of it. And then what we have also is the inability, the ability to talk about any topic, but certain parts of those topics are not up for discussion, and that's just crazy to me. And I don't want to go into the Black Lives Matter movement again because I support the Black Lives Matter big time, But I was having this conversation with one of my black friends, and I was saying, because not all black people believe all the exact same way about the movement. They have differences. They're varying degrees of whatever.
They do.
And so my neighbor, he's we came up with the idea that it's never okay, obviously, and I think that they are mistreating blacks because of the color of their skin, and that is happening. But there's something about like that, but you can't talk about any kind of
You can't talk about a caveat.
Right, for instance, like resisting arrest just in general.
Yeah, right.
Right. He was saying that's why we have judges and that's why we have cops. I don't get to decide if I want to be going to jail tonight or not.
Thank you.
That's the point.
And that's the whole point, So, but that's a logical thing to bring up. But then there are some people who would say
you're
that's
demonized.
They're going to demonize. They're saying, well, you don't support the Black Lives Matter, and that's not at all what I'm saying. But if I was going to get arrested, I'm not going to resist.
Ultimatums.
And that's just because then that's giving the power to just any citizen to say, I don't feel like going to jail tonight, and so I'm not gonna.
Right.
And that's what a judge is for, because that's the process.
And thankfully,
and that's all I'm saying, and it has nothing to do with all the real shit that's happened with guys getting shot in the back, and which is horrible and wrong.
Just real quick to go with that. Thankfully, majority of the time, for normal stuff, justice is served.
Actually, yeah, man.
I'm not talking about elites. I'm not talking about politics.
People who dance away from.
Yeah, there's a lot of not
crime,
justice served up there.
crimes,
But I'm talking
and
day to day.
punishments.
George Floyd cop, indicted. Boom. Just like, okay, we got it. We got what we wanted.
There's that new footage of George, right?
I don't know
But then
how.
the Breonna
From,
Taylor,
from the body cam.
That's a different story, though.
Right.
And
Breonna Taylor.
there's muddied waters.
I know it's muddy, but it's still. I believe. I think it's something.
What was I saying? There's so many psychological factors that are in play. There's confirmation bias. There's the desire to be part of a group. The herd mentality.
Just tribalism.
There's tribalism. There's your psychological pain of having to face a different idea. Right? There's a pain involved with that you suffer from when someone tells you something you don't agree with.
Or it might make you feel wrong.
Yeah, the cognitive dissonance is the term. Yeah. So this has to do with emotional intelligence, which is something that we haven't really emphasized or really talked about in our society. Not even in schools, which is somewhere you'd expect emotional intelligence to be discussed. Because, man, we're social beings. Some of the most incredible things we've achieved as a race has been because of our social skills and social adaptations. Like as musicians, and virtually any field. Just take this for example. If you're an awkward person, you're gonna have a rough time in our society. I mean, you can sit at home and day trade all day. You can do that, and
or you can be prolific and.
Yeah, there are places where
you can be prolific and
you're talking just interactions in society.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to at some point interact with somebody, dude, and it's only gonna deter you to have poor moral intelligence. So here we have all this technology, all this new toys to play with, but we don't have the necessarily very good moral compass or moral judgment, intelligence to know what to do with it. That's where the question comes from. Why does it seem like today, if we wanted to, we could have a sustainable energy grid?
Right.
Today, we could do that.
Our food for everybody.
Today, if we wanted to, we could wipe out poverty.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's insane.
I just like playing the saxophone.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna
So
throw that in there.
we're gonna keep playing music. We got gigs tonight. Obviously, it's not gonna be out in time to plug them.
That's actually just what I'm most grateful for these days is just being able to play in venues that kind of still respect the pandemic and stuff, and
it's like they've got a respect for it, but they're also realistic about it.
Right.
And that's why I'm thankful to be in Houston right now because other cities it's
we
just
go and get to just check out
yeah.
of all this mess for a few hours a day, and I just really like that. And I think everybody needs something like that. I think arts
Find
is
your
arts,
passion.
something
Everybody's an artist.
artistic,
Everybody
something,
is an artist.
and that goes along with the emotional, intelligence. Is you build that up by expressing things that can't be expressed in other ways.
When our politicians disappear, when our government buildings disappear, what we are left with is our creative imprint that the society made and the influences that the society made artistically. We don't talk about all the political drama that went about in Rome, dude. In ancient Rome, we talk about the architecture. We talk about the paintings.
That's a beautiful point.
We talk about the music. And
we'll talk about the politics later.
We'll talk about the politics later. The politics is boring. The politics is we already know what's going on. Somebody's trying to beat the other guy.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a great point.
Brilliant
that's crazy.
endeavor. Whatever. But that's what I'm saying.
It just seems so unimportant.
It's just
when you look at to the deeper things in life and the experiences that people share with each other.
Absolutely.
And that's why I appreciate being able to play music. I'm very, very grateful for having
Let's
it
make
in
some
my
plugs,
life.
huh? What plugs?
A lot of music coming up. Last plug. October 14th, 7 to 10:30 p.m. Avant Garden with the Houston Ensemble.
Wait, October 14th, Axelrad.
I'm sorry,
Axelrad,
not
Axelrad.
Avant Garden. Axelrad.
Axelrad.
October
Axelrad.
14th.
Today
Axelrad.
at Avant
What street is that on? That's on,
Alabama.
it's Alabama and what's the name of that other street?
I forgot.
Who knows? Axelrad.
And yeah.
Details are in the description. Every Wednesday at Brazil on Dunleavy in Montrose from 8 to 10 p.m. You can see live jazz there. Every Tuesday, Live Jazz Tuesdays at Mercantile Coffee Shop on Stanford Street from 7 to 9 p.m. We've got more. You'll see it. Follow us on the social media at Houston Ensemble, Twitter, Facebook,
And also, we encourage
Instagram.
musicians to come out. Like, let us know you want to come out. If you want to play, let us know. We'd love to give you the opportunity to come back into the scene. There's a lot of great musicians that are not gigging.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. There's a lot of great
Really,
musicians.
really great musicians.
Amazing.
And also, just lately, you know, the if you follow us on Houston Ensemble, we've been trying to take requests, you know, so to you know, kind of broaden our base, you know, and learn some new stuff. And you know, we may get to it, we may not, but like, please send us requests, you know, so we can learn new music and play it for you.
In the future, just to give our followers some heads up about where we might take this podcast, we want, when we're having musicians, we want to actually have perhaps in the future have a music portion of the podcast. Which is something we didn't get to do today, but I'm sure
it reminds me of Tiny Desk. It's kind of like a mix of that is kind of what I'm thinking. You know, something like that would be really cool. Because we could have tons, of different musicians, and they could talk about their.
We're gonna have Jeremy Joseph on next one, and then a couple other individuals, some DJs. Perhaps.
We've got stuff lined up.
We got stuff lined up. So you know, do give us suggestions about how we can improve our platform. Comment, let us know what we can do better. Suggestions for topics. Please remember, subscribe at Houston Ensemble on all socials at Houston Ensemble. And hit that little bell notification, because it's so important to have these conversations right now more than ever. We're the Houston Ensemble. We want to encourage free thought and support the creative arts. That is our mission statement. So thank you so much, everybody. And on 3, 1, 2,